this is going to be by far the most preliminary work that's presented. I think the excuse that we have is that this is also like, you know, some of the first research that has been facilitated by ReCIPE, and the same will be true of a second small presentation that I'll give. Like this will be 2 mini presentations essentially. And so this is work together with Ido, who's a master's student at PSC, and my colleague François, who is in the room here as well. And so the basic kind of like you know setting of this paper is or the background of this paper is that we start to think about this project exactly. You know, because we were thinking about this broader topic about like natural resources, climate change, and conflict. And as I said earlier, the role of biodiversity is like, you know, one element that has been relatively understudied in the literature, or at least in the literature on the economic impacts of conflict. There is a literature on biodiversity and wildlife conservation, but like more like from an environmental perspective. So there's some work showing that biodiversity can offer a safety net. And there's some work as well on like, you know, how biodiversity may generate income, but none of that work is looking specifically at its interaction with conflict. And so in this project, what we try to do is to link wildlife tourism in sub-Saharan Africa with conflict outcomes, and we're going to present some again like very preliminary evidence that tourism activity may potentially be associated with a lower conflict. I think what's kind of interesting from a theoretical perspective about thinking about you know the role of wildlife and biodiversity is that the income shocks that it generates are a bit specific, because you know we think that like kind of tourism is probably a sector that is relatively labor intensive, so we could think that like opportunities cost channels operate here. At the same time, it could be it could also like generate tensions around land use, very much in line with like some of the earlier presentations today. And what's also interesting is that tourism is associated with specific institutions like protected areas, state enforcement, and on top of that, tourism, as we know, like from other work, is actually highly sensitive to conflict. And so we think for all of these reasons, it's particularly interesting to think about like, you know, ecotourism as a kind of a factor kind of contributing or influencing conflict dynamics. I'm talking too closely to the mic. Sorry, I can take some distance. Sorry. Yeah. So this is just like you know showing very descriptively like the importance of tourism across different countries. So you see that in quite a few African countries, like tourism accounts for more than 5% of GDP. It is estimated that the safari tourism market in particular is worth like roughly like 17 billion US dollars. And as I mentioned earlier, like you know, this ecotourism could improve potentially like rural livelihoods, but also generate like some conflicts over access to land. I'm not going to talk about a different type of conflict that in the environmental literature has received some attention, which is the conflict between humans and wildlife, right? But this is somewhere there at the background as well. On this picture, you see like you know like what is known as the Big Five. There is this idea that like if you do a safari in sub-Saharan Africa, you need to see all of these 5 animals. And so this is in some sense going to inspire our empirical exercise as well. So we collected data on at least big 4, or 4 big species. So we look at information on lions, leopards, elephants, and buffaloes. The rhino data turned out to be not sufficiently precise to be useful. But as I mentioned earlier, this is preliminary, and we hope to improve that data as we progress in the project. So we're going to be looking at information about these 4 iconic species. We're going to use, as many presentations today, conflict data from ACLED. We're also going to introduce a proxy for tourism, which we think is potentially quite powerful here, which is the number of bird watchers in particular areas, which comes from this website eBird, where people volunteer information about and pictures of the birds they have spotted while they were traveling across the world. And then in our data we also have some more standard variables. This is just zooming in on one country, which happens to be not particularly conflict affected, even though there's still there is still conflict in Tanzania in the time period that we'll be studying as well. Showing the location of national parks, the location of international airports, and also where we observe in our data bird watchers, and so you see that bird watchers are relatively adventurous. They cover large shares of the country. In terms of empirical strategy to get at this question of how can we estimate I'm going to be very careful here. I'm not sure if I should call it plausibly causal, but I also don't know of a way to even qualify this statement more. Perhaps plausibly squared causal evidence, but. I think the empirical strategy that we have in mind has some leverage and can probably kind of be improved further. But the idea we have is that we're going to look at a subset of sub-Saharan Africa, and in particular of East, Southern, and Central Africa, where we look at areas that have at least 3 of these big iconic species. And we're going to think about the additional effect of having a 4th species, thinking that this could be a potential driver of the attractiveness of this area to ecotourism. On top of that, we're going to use additional variation that comes from the distance of locations to international airports, which again, we think, this is very intuitive, make these areas also more accessible to ecotourists. And so we're going to look at this combination of having these 4 iconic species and being sufficiently close to an international airport in a regression at the grid cell level, where we include country fixed effects. There's not going to be a time dimension here, so we collapse the data over our sample period, which covers 1997 until 2020. We entered the exercise in COVID because actually in the birdwatcher data, we do see a relatively sharp drop in the number of tourists and birdwatchers because of COVID. But this could become at some point an additional exercise as well. We haven't exploited that yet. So this is just graphically representing areas that have at least a big 3, so that's in orange, and we map onto that as well the areas that have the big 4. You do see that visually the big 4 areas are a bit bigger and the big 3 areas are a bit more on the periphery. So we think this is something we haven't fully explored yet. I'm sure there's going to this generates some potential endogeneity concerns, but it is true that these both we'd see both big 4 and big 3 areas across the a large geographical area. Sorry, I forgot to take some distance from the mic. On this map we show where we observe bird watchers. So again, there's quite a lot of variation here. So this is in the subsample again of grid cells that have at least the 3 iconic animals. And then we look at conflict in ACLED. Most of these areas and countries are they experience relatively low intensity conflict. The shading may not be very visible, but you do see conflict events across again this wide area, even if it's often at relatively low intensity. Okay, turning on to the results, and what we find in the first 2 columns is that being close to having these 4 iconic species while at the same time being close to an international airport significantly increases the number of bird watchers. Both when we measure it as in an inverse hyperbolic sine transformation, or just purely as the share of years with some bird watching activity. There's no separate effect of the big 4. So actually, if you're not close to an airport, there's a positive but insignificant increase in the number of tourists. Which is kind of highlighting the fact how highlighting the importance of access to these areas for tourism. Interestingly, when we look at conflict outcomes, so those are the 4 last columns. What we do see there as well is a reduction, a significant reduction in conflict, both in terms of proportionally. So when we look at inverse hyperbolic sine transformation of fatalities, or when we look at the share of country, the share of grid cell years that have been in conflict over our sample period. So this share goes down significantly as well by about 5 percentage points, which is relatively big when you have the big 4 and you're close at an airport at the same time. This is looking at fatalities. We see the same result if you look at a broader set of the broadest set of conflict events in ACLED, some of which are not necessarily fatal. Of course, there are a lot of endogeneity concerns here, and so it's going to be very important for us, and we haven't nearly completed this exercise, but it's going to be very important for us to think about what exactly we're picking up with this interaction of having the big 4 safari animals and being close to an airport. Our first attempts at this have been relatively have been relatively comforting for our exercise, in the sense that we don't find for some key outcomes there are no obvious correlations with our key our key variable of interest. So we don't see a significant effect of this interaction term on whether you're in a protected area. There's no significant effect on population. There's no effect on your probability of having the same ethnic group in a neighboring cell. There's no significant relationship with mining activity. There's no significant relationship with rainfall, and no relationship as well with a measure of valuable trees that we looked at as well. There's quite given. I mean, this is very preliminary. There's quite a lot of next steps that we need to work on. Among the data improvements that we need to undertake, we're still keen to include rhinos in our data set. We need to improve. We have some countries where we don't have necessarily the exact set of what are officially international airports. And then we can also extend the data by including the equivalent essentially of bird watchers, which are mammal watchers, like from a different website. Even if like bird watchers may actually have some advantages, actually, like if we think about like their characteristics and the fact that but we can talk about that later. There's going to be quite a lot of concerns about exogeneity. So we definitely need to like kind of produce more like balance tests of the types that I've just shown. Perhaps think even about more local comparisons to try to deal with the fact that the big four areas are more continuous. Also, like perhaps take seriously the idea that some species may be reintroduced as a policy, and that's something we haven't picked up, or we are that could potentially undermine the identification assumptions. And there's also the opportunity of perhaps exploiting additional external shocks to tourism inflow. So I talked about COVID earlier. We could also look at like the improvement of transport links in further extensions. The role of protected areas is a bit at the background here. In some sense, this project evolved from a larger effort to look at the impact of protected areas, which is a project where we haven't really gotten our heads around how exactly to approach this question. But it's clear that at the background, these protected areas potentially play a role here as well. And then definitely on mechanisms, there's a lot of work that are left to be done. It would be nice if we could show actual effects on local incomes, perhaps also look at poaching, enforcement by central authorities, and kind of linking back to the earlier presentations of both Owen and Paul. We haven't thought very carefully at all right now about mobility and displacement, which also leads to questions about what is the exact right control group here, right? Because to the extent that some actors are mobile, it may be that we're picking up in part kind of spillover effects between the big three and the big four group, and that's something we need to kind of deal with a bit more carefully. So lots of work to be done. No, those are both great ideas. I hope that Francois is taking notes.
Yeah, we could not hear the question.
Okay. No, but I think I'll remember. So
2 quick points. One on whether you have data on kidnappings, and then the second one is whether you can do some interaction with seasonality for some of these animals.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we need to think more carefully then about what exactly the mechanism of influence is as well, right? To which extent is the income generated by tourism around these species? To which extent are the impacts yeah. No, exactly. So I think you're right. It's something we could exploit going further. I think I'll take one more question, but then I need to switch to the last mini presentation.
Thanks. Like you, I'm a bit worried about the endogeneity of these big four and what incentives are there to protect these animals versus not protect. Yeah. And then we've also been talking about pastoralists versus herders. So in my casual observation, seems to be that in agricultural areas, people are a lot more opposed to elephants because if they run through your crops, it essentially writes the whole thing off. And in pastoral areas, people are a lot more opposed to big meat eaters. I don't know if you can do anything with this observation. Maybe it's a placebo check.
No,
in any case, I would be interested to know if your variation is the increase from big 3 to big 4. I would be
it's
interested
not driven
to
by
know
elephants.
what the marginal
this is something
animal is.
So this is I didn't talk about. One thing we did test is that the the difference that we see between big 3 and big 4 is not driven by elephants. It's quite robust but I agree. It's another like dimension that we should explore more. Very happy to talk about this, during the reception and the break that's coming up. But I need to talk about one more kind of again very preliminary kind of a project that I started with Dominic, and that is in some sense the background of this is that as we've explained earlier, we will have these pathfinding papers in the 9 different themes of ReCIPE. But at some point we wanted to think as well about what could be a framework in terms of country and conflict classification that could help us kind of translate evidence and to make it relevant to different contexts. And so the whole the premise of and the goal of ReCIPE is really to think about this interaction between development and conflict and fragility in a broader sense, which means that in the program ultimately we will be focused primarily on lower income countries, but there are a lot of questions around what it means to focus on particular countries. In particular, we can wonder if there's anything we can still learn from conflict processes in middle-income countries and in rich countries. Perhaps there are some types of conflicts that are more specific to low-income countries. There may be others where actually high-income countries provide richer evidence that can still be relevant for understanding conflict in lower-income countries. And there may also be important to understand better what the links are between different types of conflict. If you think about criminality, low-intensity conflict, violent protests, full-scale war, in many of the presentations today, and this is not a critique, but we kind of present conflict as a relatively abstract object, but of course underlying this there's a lot of variation in the exact type of conflict, and understanding the transition between those types is something that's very important when we think about external validity. And so what we try to do in this project is to essentially start a descriptive exercise on the relationship between income, risk factors, and observed conflict. We're definitely not the first ones to conduct this type of exercise. There's very influential and rich work in political science on typologies of conflict, and also the OECD has very rich states of fragility reports that look at similar questions. But I think what is a bit special for us is that we have a very explicit focus on the income dimension, but also on the risk factors that are linked to these 9 ReCIPE theme. And so the goal of this exercise is going to be to come up with a country and conflict classification that will help us to go from the evidence from one specific context to insights that are useful for policy in other settings. We started quite, I don't want to say naively, but at least we took a purely kind of descriptive and low-tech approach to this problem, and we started to just kind of produce some facts about how income, fragility, and risk factors pop up in some of the data that we could access, and so we brought together income data, information about or measures of fragility, conflict data of the type that many people have already talked about today. So we use UCDP here because it covers a much wider set of countries for a longer time period than ACLED. And we will also talk quickly about democracy and polarization. The first observation is that if you use the broadest fragility measures that are available in the literature, you will find that actually the broadest fragility measures include economic components, which essentially means that you're going to treat all lower and middle income countries as fragile. And so there's no big surprise on the left side of this bar chart for that reason. What is interesting, though, is that even among upper middle income and high income countries, there is a fair share of country years that are in conflict, and so fragility seems to be a key concern in that subset of countries. But that is for a very broad measure of fragility. If you look more narrowly at a measure of security fragility, which is measured at baseline, right? So we use a fragility measure of 2007 to look at conflict between 2008 and roughly 2020. We do see, perhaps surprisingly, that security fragility is not it only has a relatively weak impact on the probability of conflict later on in time, and so if you compare these different categories of countries, so poor countries on the left that are non-secure, poor countries that are secure versus upper middle income countries that are non-secure, they have there's a bit of a decrease, a bit stronger for certain types of violence, but roughly the percentages remain relatively similar. It's only the upper middle income and high income countries that are coded as secure that seems to be relatively safe from conflict risk. Other measures of fragility produce results that are even perhaps more puzzling. So if you use a measure of national capability, you find actually that non-fragile countries have a much higher conflict risk. Democracy seems to reduce the risk of conflict a bit in lower and middle income countries. Interestingly, the gradient seems to be a bit less strong if in the subset of richer countries. And ethnic polarization does not within these two groups of poor versus rich countries does not really seem to change conflict incidents a lot. So what are the insights that we can draw from these kind of very kind of low-tech comparisons is that some in this data some combinations seem to be winning in terms of being able to avoid conflicts. So rich democracies and rich countries that have that can be classified as being secure at baseline, they seem to avoid conflict. But at the same time, this data also suggests that there are potentially strong interaction effects between different dimensions of fragilities. And then already this very kind of descriptive exercise points towards what are potentially important subtleties. So we see, for example, that security-based fragility is only weakly correlated with observed conflict, and we think that may be kind of important to think about how we should treat conflict reduction and prevention from a policy perspective. When we look at a broad set of lower income and lower middle income countries, because this could mean that actually conflict prevention remains relevant even in countries with no recent conflict history, and that may even appear as being kind of secure, in a fragility sense, at baseline. So what's next for this project? So we want to introduce richer typologies of conflict, thinking of conflicts that have different causes, and also treat more carefully the difference between repressive conflict and conflict between different armed groups. What's on our to-do list is that we want to include ultimately the risk factors that are specific to the themes of ReCIPE in these exercises. And we want to also compare like across, as I mentioned earlier, like think about types of conflict, and the goal of this week's workshop as well is for us to to draw inspiration for these exercises and to think about like how we can come up with a kind of an integrated framework that kind of helps us translate policy advice and conclusions. So ultimately, as I'm a bit repeating myself here, but ultimately the goal is to create a classification to help policymakers to understand external validity. So how can we learn from specific settings and draw conclusions elsewhere, recognizing that there's probably not like there are no one size fits all policies here, and we also need to think probably about complementarities between different policy dimensions, which is something that like in the very first talk of the day, like Austin kind of showed quite convincingly in Afghanistan, where like the social capital intervention kind of complemented a refugee support or kind of a cash for return policy. But we think more broadly that this classification can actually help us to think about what are important kind of areas of complementarities between different types of policy dimensions, and policy interventions that are trying to affect different risk factors across the themes of ReCIPE. And that's all I think I want to say about this presentation, but I definitely invite you to come and talk to Dominic and me if you have some ideas about how we can make this exercise richer going forwards.